We are live. Welcome to Astronomy Live. Tonight, we're going to talk about Starship, specifically Starship itself, the upper stage. I was in the Florida Keys for the launch of IFT-2 to see Starship rise from the horizon about 5 minutes after launch from Boca Chica, Texas. I have with me tonight a special guest. Say hi, Reds.
Hello, everyone. How's it going? Yes, I was on the phone with Astronomy Live, calling out the needed information so that he could be ready to track it. And I think he did a really good job, so I can't wait to review the footage with you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Do you remember when we first talked about potentially viewing Starship from the Keys?
We had that idea, yeah, that conversation. Basically, the way that I remember it starting is that we were looking for a very unique shot, but we also were looking for a shot that would require the least amount of driving on our part. And driving all the way to Texas is a bit of a chore, but driving to the Keys in a state that we live in is much easier. And plus, it gives us the opportunity of getting a very unique shot. So I think this was a good call.
Yeah. I remember coming up with that idea, thinking about it, looking at the website Flight Club, which I highly recommend everyone check out, and coming up with the idea of using the trajectory data from flightclub.io to be able to predictively track the rocket, because I knew it was going to be a challenge on a day like today. We'll skip over here just to see. This is what it looked like from the Finder camera in the Keys, and this isn't just open up. This is just opened up in Sony Vegas. So bright blue sky. Trying to see that, I knew that was going to be tricky, and to have any hope of seeing it, you would have to know where to look and when, and so you need the trajectory data. So using the data from Flight Club IO, I had added features into Rocket Track over the last couple years to be able to use predictive tracking using that trajectory data. But more recently, also adding the ability to slew to the horizon and wait for the rocket to rise. From launching out of Boca Chica, it takes about 5 minutes for Starship, on a good day with all Raptors running, to be able to rise from the horizon from the Keys, from the Florida Keys. And so that's what it did. It slewed to the horizon and waited, and then started to move the telescope up. And I was looking for it and looking for it and looking for it. Now, today, the launch of Starship did not go perfectly smoothly, of course. They had some issues that they're going to be working
It was
through, no doubt.
expected.
It was expected, yeah. That's not too terribly surprising. They seem to almost make it to the full length of the Starship ascent, second stage burn,
They,
essentially.
yeah, they almost made it to orbital insertion.
Right. And so if you look at the official webcast at 7 minutes 41 seconds, about here, you see a little puff come off Starship here. And so we can look at the Finder camera video and we can sync that up. It's going to be really, really faint. But then, some seconds later, we get a much bigger bang out of the situation. So if I just play this here, we have an initial puff. Yep.
I also want people to know that uh, the live stream may not do the footage any justice, but we're going to do our best to point it out to you so that you can look for what we're showing.
Right. And so this is what was shown on the official SpaceX live stream. This is the explosion of Starship, and I'm assuming here this is the flight termination system activating about 8 minutes 9 seconds into flight. So let's take a look here in Vegas. So in Sony Vegas, I've got my Finder camera footage opened up, and this is Finder camera. It rides piggyback on the telescope. I actually should have loaded up some pictures of the telescope, but we can do that in a minute. But the Finder camera is basically just a modified security camera. It's infrared sensitive, and it has a standard 50 millimeter security camera lens, zoom lens that goes up to 50 millimeters on it. Not exactly a super powerful camera, not even HD. This is a standard definition analog video signal, and I'm just capturing it here on the laptop, and this is used as a video viewfinder to be able to locate things. Now, if we can see right about, okay, that's the big explosion. Before the big explosion, there is a faint, and I mean very, very faint indication of something starting to happen in the sky, but it's up and to the left of the crosshairs, and I don't know. I can't even hardly find it here. But later,
I saw it as you were skimming through the video.
okay, so here comes the big explosion. Okay, so we've got. Let me see if I can make this even bigger.
Yeah, because you got the smaller puff, and then you have a much bigger puff.
So can you see my cursor? Is that visible?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so we start to see the big explosion forming right here in the top left corner of the frame. So it's using the Flight Club trajectory data, but it's not perfect. But it's good enough to put it in the Finder camera, which is very important because this is relatively zoomed in with that 50mm lens and the small CCD that's on that security camera. It's actually...
If you want, you can crop in a little bit.
Crop in? To the... Oh, you mean to the explosion?
To the video itself, yeah. If you raise the timeline a little bit so we can actually see it.
Yeah, I can...
And hit the little square. You know.
Yeah, I can crop in. We can crop in here. A little bit. Okay. It's about as good as it's going to get there. Okay, so we're fairly zoomed in, so it was only thanks to the Flight Club trajectory data that I was even able to capture this. So we see, if I just go frame by frame here, I'll just play it here once so you can see. Boom, there's the big explosion, and I start moving it down to the crosshairs there in the lower right. That's where the main camera view is that we'll take a look at in just a second. So let me play for you guys the actual video without cropping in or anything. This is just the raw video here, so you can see. So there's the explosion of Starship, the big explosion of the FTS system, and then I saw that on the Finder camera and moved it down to the crosshairs and got it in the main camera. Okay, so that was the FTS system activating. So again, we're capturing this from the Florida Keys, and you could see it. If you could see it on the Finder camera, it would have been visible by eye. It's just a question of knowing where to look, and that's really the trick, knowing where to look ahead of time.
This is why having predictive tracking is such a benefit.
Right. So now I'm gonna show you guys the main camera view. I'm just gonna go ahead and play this once through just so you can see. It's not been stabilized yet. I'm gonna try to get in touch with French Space Guy on Twitter. He did my stabilization for the previous Falcon Heavy launch that I did earlier this year. And he did a fantastic job with it. He's got some software that I think he's actually coded up that does a great job with it. So I'm going to see if he can help stabilize this footage. But here's the raw, unstabilized footage of the main camera view. Oh, it looks like the computer's having a little trouble playing that. Let's try this again. Oh, is it still not going to like that? Yeah, it seems like it's not... VLC player's not wanting to play that properly right now. Let me try to refresh it here real quick. Actually, you know what I should do? Give me just a second. I'm going to move this over to a different hard drive because right now it's on a external drive and I've got a solid state that might be a little faster, except it doesn't have enough free space. It's got enough. It'll do.
The speed of those drives. And just so that everyone knows, we will be uploading the footage directly to YouTube later. And we will be uploading it in the highest quality possible. We understand that the live stream is not going to do this footage any justice, but we wanted to get these views to you as quickly as possible, so you could enjoy it alongside us. Because we've only been looking at this footage for like an hour or two before we went live, and so it's we still haven't had the opportunity to process it and crop in, stabilize, all that stuff. But once we do all of those things, we will upload the full resolution video to YouTube on its own, and we will of course be sharing it to Twitter or X or whatever Elon is calling it this week.
Yeah, yeah. Wow, okay, OBS is just having a heck of a time here. So I got in the view, and immediately I noticed it's tumbling and spewing fuel. And, oh, by the way, the engines aren't running anymore. And I had a feeling that's not normal. So I shut off predictive tracking, which I probably shouldn't have done, honestly, but then got it back in with manual tracking. Okay, it's not having a good time. Okay, there, we can see it. You can see it tumbling, and you can see it spewing fuel. Now let's take a closer look and resolve. This will be better anyway. We'll just go frame by frame here a little bit. And then later I'll upload the raw footage, and hopefully it'll be good. So let's see. So hopefully you guys can see we've got it open here in DaVinci Resolve. I'm gonna try to make this a little bigger. Sorry. See, how do I adjust the panels in Resolve? I'm still new at working with DaVinci Resolve here. Guess we can just go like this. I'd hope to be able to shrink these panels, but I guess it doesn't let me. Nope.
Honestly, I would just go frame by frame in Vegas if you can.
I can't.
I see. This is what going live and not preparing to go live looks like. We're doing this live.
Yeah,
so
I'm trying
to. We just got this footage. We just got it to a point where, our computers could even somewhat kind of maybe handle it. Because the camera that Astronomy Live uses is no joke. It produces files that are massive, and they need to be converted into a usable format that a computer can actually work with, and even then you can still run into problems.
Well, anyway, we'll just play it here, and the size is what it is. Let me see. I can't really do that, so I'll just we'll just play it here in Resolve. So you can see it tumbling there, and you can see it spewing fuel. Now you also see other dots around it. So this is interesting. As it first comes into frame, you can see a couple things here. One is that down here, you've got another part of it that seems to also be spewing some fuel or some gas exhausting around it, but it's much smaller than the main piece. You also have other dots, like up in the top left here, that are really shining quite brightly and reflecting the sun. Probably bits of stainless steel or something that's very shiny up here, and you can see it catch the sun and really increase in brightness there in that frame. So you've got some debris there, and you've got other bits floating around here as well. So again, this is not stabilized. This is just the raw video footage in DaVinci Resolve.
What I would recommend you do, Astronomy Live, is not only stabilize the footage of the main piece of Starship, but also stabilize the footage around different pieces of debris and tie it all together into one video.
Well, so I'm not going to be. I don't know that I'm going to be able to do that very easily. I mean, some of these debris pieces are really tiny, and the contrast is very low.
Oh, it's going to be a pain. I'm talking about the more notable pieces.
Yeah, I mean, what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if I can reach out to a French space guy, since he did my stabilization before, and he's really good at that, and see if he can stabilize at least on the main body, because I think that will help. If you stabilize on one piece, the other pieces are going to be sharing similar velocities, so you should get a better view of the motion of the field. So it goes out here, and then I get it back.
And you can definitely see it spinning.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So here, when it comes back, it's even higher now and actually closer to me. So yes, somebody was asking if this is after FTS was activated. It is. It starts just after it was activated, and we're now some 30 seconds later. And you can still see there's a big chunk of Starship around here that is venting and tumbling as it goes. So I'll play this. So, yeah, there for a second you could see a little bit more detail. There's something there that looks to me like it might still be burning even, or glowing, or maybe it's just catching the sun, but there's a brighter part of it right there, which I thought was interesting for just a moment, and then it goes away. Okay, and then...
Yep, you can definitely see it burning.
And then once again, we have another piece of debris that catches the sun for just a second. And so some of this is probably real thin stuff, and it has to be sort of face onto the camera to even appear. Like the previous frame, you don't even see it. Suddenly, 1/60th of a second, it's there, and then a couple frames later, it's basically gone. So there's other little bits appearing and disappearing as they rotate and tumble and catch the sun. But there's this one big piece, and from what I've seen, it looks like it still has the front flaps. So we were joking about this, that it's the front fell off, and it really is. It's like the front of Starship came off with the FTS.
What happened to Starship? Well, the front fell off.
Yeah, right here. Look at this. Look at that. It's pretty clear to me like there's front flaps catching the sun, and so when they're at the right angle to catch the sunlight like that, you can see them. And yet, you know, it's funny, you go a few frames earlier, there's a really big flare off of one of those front flaps.
Honestly, I think that is the best frame, because you actually get a sense of the shape that we're looking at.
Right. And yet
that is definitely the front half of Starship, and
right.
You caught it over the keys.
Over the keys. A few frames earlier, like you don't even see that there's front flaps there. It's just a tube. And this is what I was seeing. This is what I was noticing and sort of perceiving in real time as I'm tracking it, is that I see a tube shape. There's some detail on it, but I can't really tell, you know, as I'm trying to move the joystick and try to track it. I thought it was intact at first. I really did. I thought it was mostly intact and just spewing fuel. No, it's really not intact. It's really the front. And so, yeah, these frames here, like, you can really see the front of Starship has come off after the FTS.
That as Starship, this is confirmation that as Starship was passing your location in the keys, that only the front was left.
Right. And so, you know, it's also interesting. If we go back here, I'm going to go frame by frame again. Notice you can tell it's sort of rotating along its long axis, because initially, again, if we go way back, you don't even hardly see the flaps. They're maybe there a little bit, but you'll notice the right flap, maybe the starboard flap, catches the sun first, and then it keeps rotating, and now we can see both flaps pretty well. And then if I keep going, now the left flap catches the sun. So you can tell it's rotating about the long axis, and it's catching the sunlight, one flap and then the other. And so
I cannot wait until you're able to really work to stabilize this footage.
Yeah.
Because I think it's going to show the rotation very clearly. And you're right. Once the sun catches the flaps, they become extremely visible.
Yes. And
this shows that this is the front of Starship. And what I just cannot believe, dude. You caught this as it was passing the keys.
Right. That
is amazing, and I just want you to know that you're the only one that has this footage.
I know. I'm still. See, this is the thing. We've been spending a couple hours here trying to convert this to an MP4 from the Blackmagic RAW file, trying to look just at these frames to understand even what it's showing us. This frame right here, what we can see is you have one of the front flaps. catching the sunlight a bit. It's edge onto us, basically, but you can see it's actually casting a shadow as well on the body of the front of Starship up near the top. You see that dark shadow above the flaps. So you see the flaps catching sunlight, but it's blocking it from the nose of Starship up above it. So you can really get an angle, you can really get a sense of the angle of the sunlight on the vehicle there.
It really brings the picture to life, and like I said, I cannot wait to see the stabilized footage.
Yeah.
But this shows that, yes, Starship did, in fact, break in half. Your footage has shown that.
Yeah, and
conclusively.
Yeah, and I would say the back end of it seems like it shredded, or maybe I just missed that section of it, but I don't think so. I think you look at what's happened here, where it's still spewing some fuel, some gas, and it was spewing a lot more initially. I think the back end basically became some of those big chunks I was seeing floating around it initially, but
that makes sense.
The most intact part was the front half of it after the explosion.
Absolutely, yep. The most intact part was the front, and that's what you caught.
Mm-hmm.
That is absolutely amazing. And also, to just illustrate this again, this was very difficult to track. The only reason that this was even possible is because of predictive tracking.
Absolutely, yeah.
So
yeah.
You would have to know where to look, and you would need to have enough magnification to even see the thing in the first place.
Exactly. And as I said, that's why I was able to do this, because on the Finder Cam video, we were able to see it there, whereas, without predictive tracking, I wouldn't have had it in frame. And even with predictive tracking, it was a close call, because I did have it really zoomed in on that finder, which didn't allow for much error there. And obviously, the trajectory is not going to be perfect. This was a guess by an amateur, basically, and now we have some actual flight data from a Starship test flight that made it through staging. So he's going to have better data now. Declan will have better data to work with, I expect, for future Flight Club trajectories.
And for that, let me go ahead and read something from Scott Maley. Welcome, Scott. This is consistent with FTS activation. The tanks would have blown apart from internal pressure, but the front isn't pressurized in the same way.
That makes perfect sense. Thank you, Scott. Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right about that.
Yeah, what I would, I can't wait to see the stabilized footage, because you're going to see very clear rotation. You're going to clearly see the front flaps of Starship. This is going to be amazing. This is going to be amazing. Honestly, it is. And I would encourage everyone that when we post that footage, that you share it everywhere.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, you can see it as I play it here. I know it's a little bit stuttery, but you can see it. It's clearly tumbling kind of end over end, while it also rotates and occasionally catches those flaps in the sunlight. So in this other rotation, this is now a later rotation. Again, we have a few frames here where the flaps are catching the sun, and you can really see them there on the side of the front of Starship, which is just crazy.
Out of curiosity, were you able to notice the rotation in real time while you were tracking it?
I didn't notice the rotation about the long axis. I didn't really catch that fact the first time when I was just tracking it. I did notice, of course, it was tumbling, but I didn't make note of the flaps there like this. It goes by in an instant, and for most of the frames, you actually don't see the flaps. Now, whether that's due to tiles on some other surfaces, I don't know. I mean, it underwent a pretty energetic event in blowing the back end of the Starship to pieces. So I'm wondering how many tiles were even attached at that point. It's probably probably not very many, is my guess. It was probably kind of way more exposed stainless steel. And one of the reasons I say that is if we look again, and we can use sort of the reflections off the flaps as a proxy, because the one side of the flaps is supposed to be covered in tiles. But if we look here, okay, so it's rotating about the long axis. In these frames, we can clearly see the flap catches sunlight. The flap catches sunlight again. We go forward. let's see, we're now getting to be edge on. And somebody was asking earlier, am I sure that this is not tiles up here at the nose? I don't think so. I mean, it could be, but I really doubt it. It looks to me, it looks like lighting to me. It really does.
Yeah. No, that's what I'm thinking as well. Also, to read again from Scott Manley and then NASA Spaceflight, first Scott Manley. Just curious as to whether you record camera pointing data alongside the video.
So I'm kicking myself. I have that as a feature in work, but I don't consider it. I don't have it ready for prime time with predictive tracking yet. So I don't have granular data on that. I do have the coordinates that the telescope came to a stop at, which is just after it could no longer keep up. When I stopped it, I took a picture of the hand controller, so I have the coordinates at the end of the track, but I don't have the coordinates throughout the earlier portion of the track, unfortunately.
All right. And from NASA Spaceflight, flaps be like, okay, let's get ready for the belly flop.
Yeah, it belly flopped all right, just not in the way intended, right? So
not in the way it wanted.
Trying to figure out the rotation period. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I think the rotation is very clearly defined in your footage. And like I said, you caught this from the Keys.
Yeah, from Florida.
So, Astronomy Life, if you'll permit me for a second to just have a little fun here. I noticed or while watching the SpaceX live stream for Starship that shortly after T0, there was a glitch in the live stream. There was some compression artifacting, and I know that there's some conspiracy theorists that will be like, oh, there's this artifacting in the video, therefore this is where they inserted the CGI. Well, we have confirmation that this thing genuinely flew, or I should say exploded, over Florida. So, hashtag not fake.
Yeah. I wouldn't say over Florida. I mean, it was over the Gulf, but yes, it flew where we could easily see it from the Keys, near the Keys. I mean, it was about almost 50 degrees high. So when the telescope came to a stop at the end of this, it was at an azimuth of 220 degrees and an elevation of 48 degrees above the horizon, which is pretty high. Elsewhere in Florida, it would have been a lot lower, but from the Keys, it was pretty high in the sky.
So yeah, from the Keys, it was possible, assuming that you had predictive tracking and the necessary telescopes and cameras and stuff like that, it is possible that people would have been able to see it for themselves. So this demonstrates that that little glitch that SpaceX had in their live stream shortly after T0, that doesn't matter. We have independent confirmation that this thing did launch. This thing did go. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was making this point too. If you watch the SpaceX live stream, even before they get to stage set, the orientation of the vehicle and the perspective that the cameras on the ground have, it makes it look like it's pointing down at the ground, right? And they always say, well, see, it's heading back to Earth. If you look at my Finder camera footage, when the explosion happens well after stage separation, it's still heading up from the horizon from my perspective, because, we live on a globe. So
yeah, go figure, right?
Just saying, Earth isn't flat.
Just saying. A question from the live chat is, when do you plan to have the stabilized full resolution video uploaded?
So that's a great question. It's going to depend on when I can get some help with that, because I've tried to use my tracking algorithm on it, and it's a bit of a bear. I mean, I'll keep working that, but the feature tracking algorithm that I developed myself is not the best, and it doesn't handle rapidly changing shapes that well. And this is a rapidly changing shape as it rotates, as it flips, and as the gas coming out of it changes on a relatively quick cadence. It has a lot of trouble with that. And earlier in the video, it's actually relatively low contrast in this section until it hits the sunlight. But there are sections here where it's very low contrast. It's just basically obscured by all this residual fuel or oxidizer potentially spewing out of here. So whatever these gases are, it's just making it a cloudy mess, and it's no two frames are alike. So it's a bit tricky to track, and also brightness-based tracking kind of difficult because you have this diffuse, low contrast cloud all around it. So yeah, there's that, and also there's occasionally bright flashes from some of the debris that is flashing, and it'll brightness-based would accidentally lock onto that potentially. So I'll keep working it. So it's hard to say. Hopefully, French Space Guy can help me out here like he did with Falcon Heavy and get something, but it is a time-consuming process, so I'm not expecting to have that in the next 24 hours, put it that way.
Send carrier pigeon to French Guy. Let him know that we need his help.
Yeah, help!
From Saturn Technologies, I thought the FTS would just blow it up, but the whole decapitation will do. I'm actually happy that it stuck with decapitation rather than just blowing the whole thing up, because it allowed us, or allowed Astronomy Live, I should say, to get some pretty amazing footage.
Yeah, Scott Manley in the chat here with the hard mode. I would just manually track it one frame at a time, to be honest. I mean, you're not wrong. That's definitely a solution. And you know what? That might actually be the easiest solution at this point. There's about 3,000 frames to go through. It's actually not undoable for sure. So for, maybe for this video I could do that. That might be an option to look into.
It might actually be worth it, considering just how unique this footage actually is.
Yeah.
And I'm serious. This is very, very unique, and it's valuable as a result.
Yeah.
Because where did everybody go? Everybody went to Texas. Everybody went to Texas to see the launch, but you went to a place that nobody else was at to see this thing, and you caught some pretty unique video of it. So I would say take advantage of that, put the necessary work into it that it does deserve, and then post it up, and then watch it just flourish.
Yeah. Just hand track a few sections. So yeah, that's a good idea. And Jordan Hinshaw also says that Resolve has pretty decent tracking built into it. You just have to do it one chunk at a time. I need to learn more about how that works. I know that is a feature in Resolve, and I've never been able to get it to work well, but I just don't know what I'm doing with it. So I'll have to study up on that some more. And Eric Briggs in the chat also says, someone recently captured a re-entry video over Puerto Rico while standing next to the fort. Yeah, that's a great video. I've seen that as well, and it makes me think that's probably this front section, is my guess. It's probably the front section re-entering.
So you have independent video of it launching out of Texas. We have independent video of it going over the Keys, and we have video of it, coming back down to Earth by Puerto Rico. Yeah, we got the whole thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you could put all that together and be like, here is the series of events, and it's not from SpaceX. There you go. Do we think the FAA will be concerned such a large piece was remaining after AFTS from NASA spaceflight? What say you? My
guess is that the question on how concerned they are is going to depend very much on how well this section burned up in the atmosphere, for one thing. Like, I don't know. I don't know how completely size of Starship this large is really going to disintegrate on reentry. But like I said, I imagine the heat shield tiles were pretty well sheared off by the forces at play here. But I could be wrong about that. I mean, there might be some that remain, and maybe the stainless steel itself can kind of tolerate enough of that reentry to at least be slag that would be dangerous when it comes down. I don't know. I'm not the expert on that for sure, but that's what I was kind of joking around and making comments about this before we went live. Like, is the FAA going to reach out to me for this video? Are they going to want to see this? I don't know.
That would be so funny if they did. Just saying. I guess the concern of the FAA is really going to depend on whether or not they reach out to you for the footage.
Tech Neo with 2 pounds. Hey man, your footage is incredible. Keep it up. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Another question, but you know who I'm talking about, but I'm not going to name names because I don't feel like giving him any promotion here. But has he who shall not be named removed 11 frames yet?
Oh, probably. Yes.
just wanted to throw that out there. Anyway, but yes, thank you very much for the super chat. We definitely do appreciate it. But yeah, it's going to be pretty funny if the FAA comes knocking on your door and be like, "Yo, we got some questions for you."
Yeah, exactly. Fask in the chat says, delete the video. Don't let the FAA see it. Knock, knock, knock. FAA, open up. Yeah. And we have a new channel member. Thank you very much. Boy, why do JC? Is that how you pronounce that? I'm not sure. Thanks for joining. Appreciate it.
11 frames. I smell conspiracy. Yes, so do I. So do I.
Jordan Henshaw says, no, that thing is completely gone for sure, like a meteor. The concern is more about learning how it operates in general, not the specific case, like if this happened lower. Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, if it happened lower and not a high energy enough trajectory where it would burn up, that's a good question. I don't know. I think about, one of the purposes of the flight termination system, of course, is if it goes off course, right? If it starts to deviate from the accepted trajectory where it could endanger the populace and that kind of thing, you want to be able to blow it up, right? Though I will say, and I wonder about this, maybe this is a question for Scott Manley, if they were to activate the flight termination system earlier in the flight, when it's more full of fuel, would that not make a bigger bang and shred it, do a better job of sort of shredding it up so you don't get chunks this large remaining?
Yeah, I would imagine that they would want it to break up into little tiny bite-sized pieces, but that's not what happened. Instead, they just, decapitated it and allowed you to capture some really cool footage of it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I would not be surprised, actually, if the FAA contacted you and would be like, yo, can you, email this to us?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, even SpaceX, I would think, would see some engineering value in, learning about how the flight termination system performed and how big the pieces were that remained after it was activated, which isn't really something you could see in their live stream, at least. Now, maybe they had tracking assets, at the Cape, even potentially looking at it. But I think the weather was going to be a factor for pretty much everywhere else in the state, except the spot I was standing in the Keys. So
you picked a good spot. I will say it worked out for you. Weather is always a factor here. From Scott Maley in Puerto Rico, or in the Puerto Rico video, we can see one fragment break off. So it was in the process of breaking up before it went behind the clouds.
Yeah, absolutely.
And from NASA spaceflight, charge them. You own copyright, smiley face. So
hey.
Yeah, if the FAA comes knocking on your door saying that we want this footage, you just have to move in close and say, how much you got?
Right. Earlier,
how much is in your pocket right now?
Scott Manley also says, earlier FTS might make bigger boom, but fundamentally the design relies on energy inside the tanks in the form of pressure. Oh, that's an interesting point. Yeah, okay. I mean, that's true. So, those tanks are designed to be pressurized at all times, right? So even when it's low on fuel, that's, as you said, that's what the design's relying on, is that pressurization, which should still be there even late in the boost phase.
Now that frame that you have up right now, where you can see the front flaps and everything like that, if you look at the very bottom of the tube there, do you notice a little bit of discoloration, as if it looks like burnt metal?
Yeah, I don't know how much I don't want to overinterpret that. That could just
Neither
be.
Do I. That's why I'm wondering what your opinion is on that.
My thought is that's chromatic aberration, maybe a bit. If you look at this frame here, where you get a really bright flare off one of the flaps, it actually is enough to produce some chromatic aberration, where you see blue on the top and red on the bottom. So that's an optical effect. That's not true color. So I'm guessing it might be similar what we're seeing in some of these other frames, where you see some discoloration at the bottom of Starship. I just don't want to overinterpret that. Like in this frame here, you can see some red and blue, which is, I think this is chromatic aberration. Yeah.
I think we're going to be able to better tell what's actually happening once you stabilize the footage and actually process it with full resolution.
Yeah.
If Elon Musk reaches out, we'll charge him as well. Absolutely. I'd be like, hey, Elon, you spent, $40-something billion on Twitter. You can throw a few bucks my way. Hey, do it. I'm telling you, do it, Astronomy Life. This is your footage, and it's pretty damn good.
Space Alien says, if I'm a passenger, I'm thankful the nose does not also go poof. Better chance of survival. I'm not sure you would have survived on this thing.
Until you're coming back down.
Yeah. As soon as you hit the atmosphere, it starts coming apart. I mean,
And you turn into a fireball.
Yeah, and Jordan Hinshaw also says, thinking about the future when this is human-rated, this is actually maybe really good. Like, the human part is way more likely to survive than the other sections. I mean, this has come up before as a topic where people wonder why you couldn't turn the front portion of Starship into an escape pod, essentially, right? That separates from the vehicle and keeps the passengers alive if something goes catastrophically wrong. I imagine the engineering with that is way more complicated than it is to just say it. And also, you have to think about that re-entry, right? I mean, we saw it with the Puerto Rico video. It's disintegrating. It's coming apart. It's obviously it has no attitude control here. So you've got to engineer all that to be able to survive re-entry and successfully recover somehow with parachutes, I guess. I mean, that's a lot to put on board and a lot of payload capacity to take up on that. And I know that's probably not in the near-term future for Starship, but,
Someone with an account called the FAA asked how much we got.
That didn't take long. Okay.
Excellent. We're off to a great start. I don't know, FAA, how much you got?
Why do GAC says, what's it like to have a video worth real money? I mean, I'm just very happy that this all worked out, because I had been planning this and trying to prepare for this for years, literally years, since they talked about launching Starship out of Boca Chica, since I was thinking about that trajectory and thinking, yeah, it should be visible from the Keys. And sure enough, Flight Club, data confirming that. And then trying to develop my software to get it to the state where it could do predictive tracking and could follow this thing up from the horizon and be able to get on it when I could see it on the viewfinder. It's unfortunate that it took it literally exploding to become visible on the viewfinder. I think the takeaway from that is that it makes sense, right? The engines are pointed away from me as it's coming up over the horizon, and they're shut off. Even if it had totally survived, the engines would be shut off by the time it flew due south of the Keys. So I wouldn't see the engines on. So during the day, trying to see it, very difficult. I knew it was going to depend on how much of the surface area of the stainless steel was facing me versus how much of the surface area facing me was covered in heat shield tiles. And honestly, I didn't feel too great about those odds. And that may have been why it didn't appear in the viewfinder at all until it started to go wrong. I mean, it's unfortunate that it didn't go off, perfectly. It's unfortunate that Starship didn't make it to its final planned trajectory. But it's fortunate for me that it didn't, because that's what enabled me to see where it was and to be able to get on it. But even that was only possible with predictive tracking, already putting it in the video viewfinder. So to see this all come together and be able to get this and be able to see the severed head of Starship in the camera just blows my mind. I love it. This has definitely made all that effort worth it, and I think it's been proof that the technique I had intended to use works for this.
Astronomy Life, a lot of times you take a risk and you end up paying the price for it, and you don't get anything as a result. I can speak from experience here, but you have driven thousands of miles for absolutely nothing. You have lugged all of your equipment and gotten absolutely nothing as a result. But this time, it all worked out. The weather worked out. You were in the right place at the right time, and you caught unique footage. No one else caught this.
Yeah.
So, congratulations.
Thank you. Somebody was asking in the chat about whether the other side has remaining heat shield tiles. I think maybe it does. Maybe that's what we're seeing here. It's a little hard to tell, but there's some darker sections, and it's not... So earlier we talked about the edge on flap being visible as casting, I believe, a shadow as its edge on. So you can see there's kind of a bump there from the from the forward flap, and then above it's dark that I think might be shadow, but it could also be heat shield tiles. And I think when it rotates around, we can see evidence that either it's been burnt black, or I think it might just be some remaining heat shield tiles that managed to cling on. So if we look at this section, there's definitely variations in brightness along the length of it, and I don't think that can be explained just by shadow. I think that is probably some remaining heat shield tiles on the vehicle.
Yeah, that makes sense. NASA Spaceflight says, still a win for all concerned. Booster 9 was upgraded from Booster 7. Proved the upgrades.
Absolutely.
Ship 25 is similar to Ship 24. Ship 28 is the upgraded one. Everything after hot staging was a bonus.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. I mean, I think everyone was hoping that we would at least see them get through staging and second stage start.
Oh, that hot staging was beautiful.
Yeah.
Absolutely beautiful. And also, we have $5 from Megan. Thank you very much. Great stream and great footage. Thanks.
Thank you, Megan. I appreciate that.
And one of the people that were there. Let me see if I can find his images. But let's see. But yes, Andrew McCarthy. Andrew McCarthy on Twitter or X or whatever we're calling it. He actually captured some really, really good shots of Starship, and one of my favorite shots is of it breaking through Max Q, and that is absolutely amazing. And so you have his shots. You also have, you have the original live stream, and we have your shots from the Keys. We have that shot from Puerto Rico. This thing was covered 6 ways to Sunday, and it's awesome. I absolutely love this.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I also, on top of that, I also want to note that Andrew McCarthy has multiple shots of Starship, and so I recommend you guys look at his stuff on Twitter. You will not be disappointed. I guarantee it.
Yeah. Want to give a shout out here for DKK50 from Odin Adelsteinson. Boy, I'm butchering names tonight. Very interesting. Thank you for this footage. Thank you for your super chats. And I just want to point out that one of the topics that came up when we started discussing the idea of trying to film Starship from the Keys years ago was that we needed a new telescope to do it, because the 8-inch LX200 that I had at the time, that I still have now but wasn't using today, is not capable of predictive tracking because of the limited command set that the old LX200 supports. It does not allow me to directly control the drive rates. So I can't command it for a specific drive rate. You have to sort of use this closed loop workaround to trick it into acting like it has smooth rate control when it really doesn't, in order to do joystick tracking and satellite tracking and all of that. But it doesn't let you, it doesn't lend itself to predictive tracking. So with predictive tracking, I know what rate the telescope needs to move at, and I need to be able to smoothly change those rates over time. So one of the things that we talked about was that Celestron telescopes do let you do this, and even more modern LX200s do have that capability as well. So I was going to need to upgrade to a more modern scope, and so we had a lot of discussion about that, about how we would do that. And I think, Red, we'd even talked about sticking a proper telescope tube on your 6/8 SE mount at some point, because that would technically do the trick. So there was a lot of discussion about all of that, and what ultimately ended up enabling this video today was all of you guys watching and super chatting and supporting this channel. Your support during the James Webb Space Telescope webcast that I did was what ended up paying for the telescope that I acquired that we used here today to be able to track Starship. So thank you all, because your support made this video possible. by enabling me to upgrade to a newer scope that is able to do predictive tracking. So thank you all for all of your support that have really made this possible.
Yep, and I also want to thank all the people watching, because you all give us motivation to put in the effort that this requires. Because, Astronomy Live, you had to drive hours upon hours upon hours, and keep in mind, you did that at a risk. There was no guarantee that the weather was going to cooperate with you. In fact, I think it was even predicted that there was going to be slight cloud cover, but you said, you know what, screw it, I'm just going to go. I'm going to drive the hours necessary to at least have an opportunity. So good on you for doing that, and thank you guys for giving us the motivation to do crazy stuff like this. It's it's obviously working. So
Yeah.
Thank you guys. And if you all can do us a favor, please support this stream by sharing it everywhere. Please follow Astronomy Live, so that when we do post stuff, you guys can be aware that, one, it exists, and two, you have the opportunity to share it even further. So, help us out, get the word out. And if so, thank you very much. We really do appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys. I mean, it was an adventure. I posted some pictures on Twitter of the setup, and at one point posted a picture of it completely covered up because it was literally raining on me about an hour before launch. So it was an adventure, but it cleared up thankfully, and we had a good view of the launch today from the Keys. At least what remained of it after the explosion. Somebody was asking. Let's see. Curtis O'Neill asked, "Where's the explosion footage?" So we played that at the beginning. I'll play it again here one more time for you. So this was with the Finder camera. Up on the top left, you can see the explosion occur, and that's what clued me in. It was not visible before that, but you see it starts out looking like kind of like a star, and it quickly expands, and you can see the gas expanding as the flight termination system is activated. So that clued me in as to where it was as I was trying to track it with predictive tracking, and then slewed over to it quickly with the joystick. So that's what we see here with the Finder camera footage. The Finder camera is just a standard definition security camera that I mount on top of the telescope to be able to track rocket launches like this and be able to do things like, here you can see, correct for any pointing errors and get it directly on the rocket. So that's what we were able to see there.
Perfect. And for €10, well done, guys, all the way from Roscommon, Ireland. Amazing footage and unique compared to all other high-res footage. Insightful.
Yeah, thank you. I knew there were going to be a lot of excellent photographers down in Boca Chica. I mean, you had all the big heavy hitters. You had John Krause. You had Andrew McCarthy. You had all these guys. You had Cosmic Perspective. You had Cosmic Perspective and Everyday Astronaut and NSF and Spaceflight Now. Everyone was there, right? Everyone had cameras there. And I apologize if I left your names off. You're all fantastic, and I thank you for your work. And I admire you guys. And I didn't want to compete with you guys, honestly. Like, that was it. Like, that was one of the first thoughts that came into my mind. I knew years ago, like, when they talked about launching Starship, that's going to be such a draw for people. And it's going to be impossible to even compete with some of their rigs and some of their setups. And so why even try? Like, there's a different way to go here, maybe. Maybe we can get this from a different angle that others wouldn't necessarily try, because it's risky, it's difficult, and it may ultimately not pay off at all, but it's worth the shot. And it paid off today.
Very risky.
It was very risky. I mean, honestly, like I said earlier, the only reason I was able to get on Starship is because Starship blew up. That's what I was able to see on that Finder camera view to say, oh, there it is, because it was so bright with the blue sky, and probably too much of the heat shield was facing me before then, that I couldn't see it. It was not visible. So it would have probably been visible in a nighttime launch, I'm guessing. Certainly if you get maybe a launch just after sunset. So this is what happens in California when they launch out of Vandenberg just after sunset, and it rises up into sunlight, and you get that luminance transfer, that luminosity transfer, where it's really bright in the sky. We get it here in Florida, typically, with launches from the Cape. You can kind of get it just after sunset, but really it works best just before sunrise, when it's launching towards the sun and rises into sunlight. With this, with it coming out of Boca Chica, If it were to be a launch that were late in the afternoon or really evening when it's just after sunset here, it would hit sunlight and still be in sunlight um, while potentially high enough in the sky that it would put on quite a display here. So that would be the best time, theoretically, I think, to see Starship from Florida. Doing this during the day was suicidal. Yeah, doing this during the day was basically a crazy thing to do. I mean, I was kind of having to count on some serious luck of being able to get a glint off of some stainless steel or something to be able to see it for a moment. I mean, that's kind of what I was counting on, and it ended up, doing the flight termination system instead.
It wasn't luck. It was pure skill. What are you talking about? Jake for $10 says, incredible footage. Thank you, Astronomy Live.
Thank you, Jake. Appreciate it, and appreciate all your support.
But yeah, as I was saying, that was 100% skill. No luck whatsoever. You could even control the weather.
Yeah, absolutely. So
no, you took a risk on that. You really did. And I don't know if you wanted me to tell people this, but I'm going to say it anyway. He actually called me in the morning and was like, this is suboptimal. And I'm like, what are you talking about? There's clouds everywhere. I screwed up. I drove all this way for no reason. And I was like, bro, relax. It's all cool, man. It's all cool. You knew this was a risk happening. Just know there are no guarantees in life. But look what happened as a result of you making that trip. You got the shot.
Yeah. It's wonderful when that pays off.
It did. It paid off really well. You got a very unique shot, and you're right. The whole thing about competing with the other people there. So many people were capturing, the launch from T0. So many people were there in Texas, but you were in a unique location to get a unique perspective. No one else has that. And yeah, don't be surprised if the FAA comes knocking on your door. Just remember, the footage ain't free.
I mean, I'm hoping I can, partner with some of these people. I think it would be cool to be able to transition. Time's got to be right. I mean, this is the lesson learned today: is the timing's got to be right. It's got to be like an evening launch or a night launch. But if that were the case, it would be cool to have the stream showing, the launch up close at the launch site, and then as you get into the later stage with Starship flying free. Transitioning to maybe my telescope and featuring that on a stream later in the launch so that you can see it up close. Because as you can see here, we can resolve the shape of Starship. I mean, the slant range here, according to the Flight Club trajectory prediction before the launch, was only supposed to be about 200 kilometers, which is about half the distance to ISS on a 90-degree pass. So that's, really good opportunity to be able to resolve it as more than just a dot in the sky, but an actual shape. So I think there's a lot of benefit there. Jiminus says, when you post the stabilized footage, please make sure the time index is synced up to the SpaceX live stream. People are going to get confused about the order of things. I totally agree, and this is something I've been working on, trying to get the times converted to T plus times so that I can show where this is all occurring in terms of the launch count. T plus 8 minutes, whatever, in my video.
There's some audio on the original footage that we're not going to post, but the way we have T plus times in the audio, and that's going to help us sync the footage with the live stream so that people can follow along and not be confused about the certain order of things.
Well, yeah, I mean, so the Finder camera video is saved based on the computer clock, and so that's fairly accurate and gives us a good idea of what the T plus times are, so we can use that. And we can also obviously see the explosion occur in the Finder cam video, so that gives us a good mark to sync on, and we can see when it comes into the main frame, the main picture frame of the main telescope, and sync that across the Finder cam to the main camera to be able to get all that. So yes, we're working on all of that, and it will have the T plus times listed on the video when I ultimately post it. Can I ask?
Now a quick request I would like to make to all of you fine people watching this right now. When it comes time for us to post this video, I again would humbly ask that you share it everywhere. The way that we are going to have the opportunity to do this again in the future is if more people see our work and that support allows us to do this in the first place. So again, when we will get this video out to you, we will stabilize it. We will have the time code synced up to the SpaceX live stream. We're going to do the work, and we're going to make sure that when we post it, it's exactly what we want it to be. When that does happen, just be prepared to share it everywhere. And when you do, it's going to just spread its wings and take off. And we would be so thankful if you could do that for us.
Absolutely. Stephen Elliott asks, does my software take into account the hold time right before launch? Well, no, that's a great question. And so I reached out to a friend who was at the site and had him on the phone. And so he called out to me when he saw it leave the pad. And that's when I pushed the button on my software to be able to start the launch, essentially telling the program, okay, launch has started, start counting down. Then it moves to the horizon, the telescope slews to the horizon and waits. And in this case, it has to wait about 5 minutes for the rocket to rise, and then it starts tracking. Carl Furstenberg asks, can I ascertain the altitude and speed from the footage? Speed's a bit tricky because I don't have smooth recording of the angles of the telescope. That is definitely something that is on my immediate to-do list to get that into the program, so next time I can record that. But certainly the slant range, you could ascertain that from the angular size of the decapitated head of Starship in the footage. We know how big that is. We know the focal length of the telescope, the size of the CCD, all that stuff. So we can ascertain the slant range from the footage. So maybe I can include that as well. It's not as much information as the overall altitude and speed of the vehicle, but ultimately I want to get there as well. We've talked about for years, like, wanting to have multiple telescopes pointing at it at the same time, running my software, recording the angles, and doing the calculations on that for the altitude and speed, from basically triangulating it from multiple telescopes tracking it at the same time.
We got something in the works here.
Yeah.
Who knows when it'll come out and be ready to rock and roll, but we got something in the works.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I think it would be awesome to have independent confirmation of the telemetry that the nameless, faceless they are telling us.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's good to have it, and especially in cases like this where we may actually get. I mean, in this case, we're able to see Starship, or what remained of it, after you could no longer see it on the mainstream, on the actual official webcast, and they had no telemetry coming from the vehicle because it had blown up at this point. So
yep. And reading a comment, found this stream on r/SpaceX Lounge, so word is getting out.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, guys. That's what I'm talking about. Keep that up. Keep the momentum going.
Yeah, enough talk. Go stabilize. Yeah, I should go do that, actually.
Yeah, I think we've said all that we need to for now. So guys, before we leave, I again just wanted to thank all of you for your support. It means a lot. It's what allows us to do awesome stuff like this, and it doesn't go unnoticed. So thank you guys. Truly, thank you so much.
I mean, I've said it before, I'll say it again. This video was made possible by your support. I know I sound like PBS here talking, but honestly, your support, your super chats, your channel memberships, your support enabled me to be able to buy this telescope to do this. My old telescope could not have done predictive tracking like this today. This video was only possible because I have the new 11-inch scope, courtesy of you guys supporting this channel. So thank you guys for all of your support. You've made this possible, and I hope to be able to very soon deliver you the stabilized footage for you all to enjoy. So I'm going to get to work on that. I think I'm going to take Scott Manley's advice and maybe just go through here manually and stabilize the frames one at a time. Maybe code up a little Python code to try to do some computerized assist on that, but still just go frame by frame on it until it's stabilized and finished. So thank you guys all for all your support. And all your advice. Oh, yes, there was also the advice about using DaVinci Resolve, so I'll look into that too, and if that seems feasible, if that seems like a good way to go, then maybe I'll try that as well for actually running the stabilization through DaVinci Resolve. So we'll look at that too. Yeah.
Yep. And so, with that, guys, we're going to go ahead and end it here. Again, thank you so much. And stay tuned. Don't forget to click subscribe because that will notify you when we post this awesome stabilized 4K footage. Yeah, it's going to be awesome. So, see you all later and good night.
Clear skies, folks.